to another great edition of Mississippi Stories. I'm your host, Marshall Ramsey, editor-at-large at Mississippi Today. And if you hadn't checked out Mississippi Today, then you can go to MississippiToday.org and see our great news coverage and all kinds of great content as well, including my cartoons. You can see those there. And if you hadn't signed up for one of our great newsletters, you can do that as well. And I do recommend mine. Of course, I'm biased as well. And I'm very biased to our guest today. And it's a guy that I've gotten to know over several interviews and bumping into him in the grocery store and just cheering him on because it's fun to watch his career take off. And as he's traveling the nation, helping both kids and the educators who help educate those kids. And we got Dr. Tommie Mabry, and I will say doctor, the newly minted doctor of education. And congratulations for that, Tommie. And we got a lot to cover. You've got a new album out today, and I can't wait for you to talk about that too. But welcome aboard.
Thank you, man. You know, it's always a pleasure to be amongst you, man. It's always a pleasure. I love your energy. So anytime I can do it, I'm always welcome.
Man, if you love my energy right now, then you're loving some caffeine because that's what's driving me right now. But no, and you know, like I said, that love goes right back at you because your hustle has always impressed me. And you're a guy who once you decided you knew what you were going to do, you put your eye on the prize with a laser-like focus, and you've achieved so much in such a short amount of time.
Thank you, man. That's always my goal. Once I set that target, everything else is in my view, and I work to that. I don't have a plan B, man. And I just told somebody I don't have a plan B. My plan A got to work. So yeah, when I put my target on plan A, I'm giving 120 to that. So that's why you always see that laser focus, because I don't have no other choice but to make this work. And I think that's what a plan B does to people. Plan B give you a safety net. Just in case plan A doesn't work out. No, plan A will work out if you work it. You just got to be locked in. And that's that tunnel vision that you always see. I'm always locked in because I don't have no other plan but to make this work, if that makes sense.
Oh, no, it makes total sense. I mean, for me, sometimes that safety net can become a hammock. And, yeah. You know, and so and I think that fear will keep you locked in. If you're afraid you're going to fail, guess what? That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And you just fall into it. But I do like your burn the boats when you get ashore mentality. That definitely is. And I think for people who are new to you and they haven't heard one of our previous talks before or seen you somewhere or read about you in the newspaper or seen you on television, because you're all over the place. Tell everybody in just kind of a nutshell a little bit about who you are and what you do.
And that piggies back off of why I'm so goal driven, because I come from a very adverse background. Yeah. You know, my house, I come from a beautiful family, but it was so adverse in my home. The trauma that sat in my home from mental illness, domestic violence, the stuff that I witnessed as a kid, not just in my community, but in my own home. I come from a family of 6 siblings. No one in my house has a degree or finished high school, and I'm the youngest. So I was able to watch everything in front of me. And I think it kind of helped me too, because I watch everything. So me being the youngest, I was able to see where my brothers and sisters went wrong, or I was able to see where my mom and dad went wrong. But I grew up in a family that we didn't talk about education in my house. I watched my mom and dad fight at night, and just to hear it and to watch my mom cry, and I got a great dad, don't miss the content. We have situations just like every other family, but the stuff that I witnessed at a young age, I was taking those same behaviors to school, and I was kicked out of 10 schools for that. And when I got older, I really understood that I was traumatized as a kid. This came recent when I was really thinking like, I really was traumatized as a kid. I just didn't like school. I didn't want to be at school. School was fear to me. It wasn't a safe haven for me. Like my anxiety level of sitting in a classroom after I heard my mom and dad fight, or just the environment alone, the gunshots, that, you know what that does to a young kid, kids learn from observational learning. So if I hear my mom and dad arguing at night, I hear the cursing in the house, and not only do we stay in poverty, I come from a background of we just didn't have it. Yeah. And I come from a family where I watch my family do everything they can do to make it. And I'm taking those same behaviors to the school. And growing up in Jackson and across the United States, we don't see males represented in early childhood in that K-5 stage. So my attitude towards the women teachers was really just like how my dad and my mom argued. So it's like I watched how my dad got his point across. I watched how my mom got her point across. So right off, I was aggressive. Yeah. To women teacher. So they couldn't really tell me nothing. I really didn't want to be in that school anyway. So man, I was shocked. My senior year in high school, I was locked up my 5th grade year. I repeated 8th grade and I was kicked out of 10 schools. And the judge told me in 5 years when I was locked up in 5th grade that I'd be dead or locked up in 5 years. So that just stick with a kid, especially a kid that come from an environment where I'm already lacking reasoning skills, right? I'm already lacking the skills that it's going to take for me to get to the next level. And then to hear a judge say in 5 years, you'll be dead or locked up. Sometimes we gotta be very careful what we tell kids and what we prophesy to them, because they'll believe it and they'll live up to their expectations. So
see, I was going to bring that up to you because a lot of times, and I remember one time I had a teacher tell me I couldn't write, and I believed her. I mean, that's how I became a cartoonist. Well, I could write, and I was a good writer back then, but that was her opinion. And for a judge to tell you that, the fact that you and I are sitting here talking to each other right now is a miracle. To have somebody in authority sit there and tell you, "Oh no, you're going to be in jail. You know, you're not going to make it."
That's and I know what he probably meant.
Right.
It's just how he said it. He probably was trying to warn me that my behaviors would get me. But I'm already hearing that I'm a troublemaker. Right. I'm hearing that every day, and I'm starting to live up to that name that I'm a troublemaker. And school, to me, it just wasn't a place that I felt like the teachers understood me and I understood them. I didn't understand them, or they didn't understand me. So I was a loner in that school. So I would fight. I would argue with the teacher just so you can kick me out. I wanted to get back home to my comfort zone. Yeah. And Marshall, I try to tell teachers now, like, you're not helping me out by suspending me, because you put me back into an environment. You put me back really in my comfort zone, and I can run the streets and I can create my own activities. It may not be the best, but I have all the time in the world. And I knew what would happen, Marshall, if I get in trouble or if I disrespect the teacher. I knew what would happen. The results to that is getting back home. So of course I'm gonna come into school and I'm gonna tear your school up, because I can go back to the house. But that is what drives me every day, to know that you got to really understand students and kids from their perspectives.
Tommie, you've mentioned ACE scores and on your website, and I know you know about the CDC study talking about, what happens to children in trauma, and they get an ACE score on, scale of 1 to 10, and the higher it is, obviously, the more. I mean, you have health problems as an adult on top of mental issues and all kinds of issues. Have you ever figured out what your ACE score might be?
My ACE score was a 7.
Okay, that's
and pretty amazing. Research shows that leads to poor academic outcomes. Like, I didn't understand that growing up. I recently just started researching ACEs in my dissertation process. Yeah, and that's when I really realized, like, I was really traumatized growing up. I have an ACE score of 7, and research shows that leads to poor academic outcomes, a lot of health effects. When I started studying ACEs, I'm like, wait a minute, let's break ACEs down. That means if a kid comes from domestic violence, come from poverty in certain cases, because that's hardship. Yeah. Divorce or separation of a parent, incarceration of a parent, neglect, abuse. I can go across the board where I really witnessed majority of all of those. My mom and dad was divorced when I was in 2nd grade. Oh, wow. And hearing that just sitting in the courtroom and hearing my dad and mom fight over me. And I'm knowing that I'm in a lose situation regardless. If I go with my mom, I won't be around my dad.
And you're in a helpless situation in that situation too as a kid. And, you know, a lot of times with kids, when they're in that helpless situation, eventually they start to blame themselves and it wrecks their self-esteem later on in life.
Correct.
So, yeah, I mean, your path, you were on that path.
That's separation anxiety also.
Yeah.
So imagine now I'm used to being in a home where I have my brothers and sisters to help me cope. I can vent. Yeah. Now I'm in a situation where I have to grow up real fast. My dad worked overnight. So imagine who gonna help me with my homework? Like, who gonna make sure that on my report card is this way? Or make sure that I'm doing everything that I need and I have the materials that I need for the next day at school. I didn't see my dad work almost when I get out, when it's time for me to go to school, he just getting in. So it's like I done ran the streets the whole night at a very young age. I witnessed some things in my early stages of life, K-5, that normal kids probably wouldn't witness growing up until they get in their, you know, their later teens. But all of that shaped me for who I am today.
You've come out with the Educator's album, and we'll really get into that here in a few minutes, which it's fantastic, so motivational. It's something that, like I've told you before, if I were a teacher, I'd put it in and listen to it, you know, right before I got into the building every day, just to give me a pep talk, you know, and get me going. But there's a story in there where you've talked about a young man coming through the metal detector. It goes off, they search his bag, and there's candy in there, and they take out the candy. But there was a deeper story to that. And I'll let you tell a story. I don't want to tell it, because I think from what you've been saying so far and talking about your life, that, you know, you didn't have a whole lot of people that had empathy that could understand that there was something deeper going on in little Tommie's life. Instead, you were just kind of written off and pushed to the next school.
Right. And that story, Marshall, it does something to me every time.
Yeah.
Because I watched this young man walk through that metal detector. I was doing a professional development with a group of teachers at a school out of town. And when I first watched his body structure change, when he walked through the metal detector, there was something in his bag that made the metal detector go off. So when they searched his bag, they never found actually what made it go off. But I watched his face expression, and I watched that anger of, I need that bag back. And I knew it was something there because I come from that environment of surviving. The part of the brain that rationalized surviving. Like when you come from that survivor, there's another part of your brain that's really not being developed, and that's cause and effect, reasoning skills. That's the part of, and I'm learning this stuff, and I'm like, okay, I really understood him from the perspective of, it's deeper than that candy. It was something there. So when he said he need the bag back, the principal was like, no, you need to go to class. And he was like, no, I need that bag back. And he broke the metal detector with his bare hand.
Oh, wow.
Right then, to me, that's a moment for adults to look at, like, it's something there, it's bigger than that candy. And I broke him down, and they was calling for the security guard to get him out. I heard the principal say, he's suspended, get him on out. And I'm like, no, you all stop. And I broke him down. I said, what does that candy mean to you? And after a while, he finally broke down crying, and he was just like, if I don't bring that profit home or that candy, I don't make rent. And that did something to me because he was so serious. And I knew that wasn't his responsibility. His mom told him, you the man of the house. And that's the hardest thing you can ever tell a kid. And I had to ask the principals, I said, did you all know that this kid is coming to work just like you all? So when you think of that math formula or that science equation or that paper, his mind is not on school. His mind is on surviving. And that's what I was telling him. It's so hard for that guy to operate in a certain capacity if the special needs are not covered. That's Abraham Maslow theory. He talks about the longer a person go unfed, the hungrier that person get. That means until a need is fulfilled, and that need wasn't fulfilled. But that goes back to understanding a kid from his perspective, because if they had known that it was a real situation, then now it's time to add some kind of resource to the table, or it's time to do something different or modify that situation. But if you don't understand that situation, how you teach what you can't see and don't know? So I always ask teachers, do you know enough about me to teach me? And if you don't know enough about me to teach me, how can you fully teach what you don't know? And that situation really hurted me.
Yeah, Tommie, I mean, I know a lot of times when you're seeing that in a school, of course, it brings back memories to your own youth. And when you took that bullet in your foot, and I mean, you had big dreams of being in the NBA, and you were a good basketball player. And I've stood next to you. You're a tall guy. You know, I mean, you could have possibly done it. I don't know, but you took the bullet in your foot. But what was it that turned you from this seemingly dead end path that you were on, or at least a path of frustration? I mean, you know, who knows where you would be now if you'd have continued on that, to suddenly saying, okay, no, I want to go into education. I want to be able to help other people. I want to do, you know, I want to pull myself out of this. Because sometimes that is so hard for an individual to do, to be able to pull them, because even a fish in a polluted pond doesn't understand the pond's polluted. You know, I mean, it's
Right.
like, how did you have that wake up moment?
It was that moment. And to answer your question, when you come from an environment like me, for an example, only way you see out is either basketball, rap, or drugs.
Yeah.
Because that's what has a kid attention at the time. So if my attention span was only on basketball, if you ask any young kid, sometimes they'll tell you, I'm going to the NBA. It's a reason why I said I'm going to the NBA, because I didn't see another way out. It's either I was going to rap, sell drugs, or play sports. In my neighborhood, you didn't see a lawyer that stayed next door to me. I didn't see an anesthesiologist or a big doctor or this and that. I come from poverty, man. I probably stayed in every part of Jackson because, of course, I was kicked out of 10 schools. So I was around everywhere. So basketball gave me an outlet. Basketball helped me get out of the neighborhood also. So when I got shot my senior year in high school, it hurted, man, because I was shot second period, 10 o'clock, freak accident. I skipped school and I was in the neighborhood if I would have stayed in school. Now my dreams are connected to this sport. I had colleges coming to saying, man, listen, we want you to come to our college. We'll pay for you a full scholarship. I'm like, man, if it wasn't for basketball, I wouldn't go to college. So I was sitting in the neighborhood and I knew I was shot. When I heard the boom noise, me and my guys are standing there and I'm just stuck, Marshall, and I'm in one spot. I couldn't even move, and I couldn't even fathom the fact that I know this bullet and hit my foot.
Oh, wow.
And it was in my friend guy's pocket. The gun was in his pocket. He was dancing, and it went off in his pocket and hit me in my foot. I broke down, man, because I watched all my dreams leave me. And that was, for my family, this is the only thing I really gave them to be happy about, to come and support me. I got my biggest support. That's where my confidence came from, that sport. That's where my self-esteem was elevated, from that sport. When the doctor told me I'd never play basketball no more, and he was only telling me that, his exact words were, just in case basketball doesn't work for you now, what are you? And I told him nothing. I didn't see another way out. I hated school. I had a 1.8 GPA. I took my ACT prior to that. I had a 14 on my ACT. So it was all about basketball. I don't want to do school, but I was just doing enough to get by to play basketball. And now I can't play. So that was the first moment where I was laying on that bed, and I used to have dreams that bullet hit my chest, and I was just asking God, like, just give me one more shot at this. Nobody came to visit me when I got shot either. So I'm just like, man, I'm at my lowest point. But I did so much to get to that point. But I'm like, I blew it. And I was blessed to get back on the court. And that's where the transition came from. Because I said, you know what? It's got to be bigger than sports right now. And just in case that happened again, or something that come in place, because adversity gonna happen. It's about how you weather that storm. Everything is done in seasons.
Mhm.
It's just how you weather that season. It's cold now, but the sun will come out in a few months. Just be patient. And I didn't understand that growing up, Marshall. So it was a bad season for me at that moment. And I was just praying. I said, you know what? But in order to get something you never had, you got to do something you never did and become a person you've never been. And that was good. Hold on, let me say that again. In order to get something you never had, you really got to do something you never did and become a person you never been. I had to get out of that mindset. My perspective had to change. My perspective is made up of my morals, my beliefs, my values. Those are some of the hardest things to change because I've lived with these experiences and these morals. So me having to change my perspective and say, you know what? I got to let some people go out of my life. That's hard to do. Change is so hard, but it was so necessary because you asked the question you asked, how did I really get from that to that? I was that bullet. And I don't think I was gonna go to the NBA, but at least it was a good dream. You know, it was something that woke me up every day. If you don't give a kid vision and hope, you don't give them anything. It starts with vision and hope, but that was my connect. Because if I didn't have that vision and hope, it would have been a disconnect. So I would have just woke up to have no dreams and I would have been probably in the street. But you know what, Mark? That bullet was the best thing that could have happened to me. Wow. Because it forced me to see that I was bigger than basketball, that I could be an educator. It forced me to really understand that, man, you great. Like if that bullet would have never, if that situation would have never happened, who'd say I would be this man today? Because my past is what made my future. It seemed like everything that I went through prepared me to be that mentor to the young kids now. So when I go to places and I tell them my story, you just imagine what the kids look at me and they just grab some hope from that story. So that bully really made me a better man today because I look at that reference point like, man, I got to work twice as hard. I can't mess up. I can't, like, putting yourself under that kind of pressure is hard, but at the end of it is, I can't take nothing for granted. And that's what that bully did for me.
You know, it's really hard when you're a kid and you're in the situation you were in and you're dealing with that trauma and you create these coping skills, which yours were obviously where you're comfortable. And so the street was comfortable, cutting class was comfortable. And it's one of those things that when you develop that wiring as a kid, it's so hard to change as an adult. But yeah, I would imagine a bullet would probably would cut through that wiring pretty darn quick. You've touched on the fact that you wanted to mentor kids, and I've seen you. I mean, you are literally a rock star when you speak. It is so much fun watching kids engage with you because I think they see themselves in you, and I think that's what makes you such a good speaker is they can relate to you and your story. But you know, you're sitting there thinking, okay, well then there's got to be another path on this. I'm laying on the table, nobody's come seen me. Why education? Why did you decide to go that route?
For two reasons. I didn't start off wanting to go straight into education. I was shot my senior year.
Yeah.
But I would always hear educators say you need a backup plan just in case basketball don't work out. When I finally was able to get back on the basketball court, one college said, you know what, we still want to give you a full scholarship, but you don't have the GPA. You have a 1.8 GPA. And me going into that process, like I played and gave below average in ability K through 12th grade. So It's like they told me I needed to get a 2.0 to come to be eligible to play basketball. At that moment, I understood I don't have it here, but I must find it here.
Right.
And when I finally started putting forth the effort to play basketball, now it was all about that. That's why I say you can't take that from kids. You got to catch kids where they at. Because a lot of kids will tell you, if it wasn't for basketball, I probably wouldn't even be in school or college. A lot of athletes would tell you that. But when I forced myself to like, okay, I got to get this right now. I've already been shot. This is my second chance. I started really going to the writing labs. I couldn't really write like other students. I was hearing professors tell me when I finally got to the college in summer school, they was telling me you won't get a degree from this college writing like that. So they always challenged me to go and try to be the better me at that moment. But that pushed me into education because I started realizing like, man, you really are smart. You're just not applying yourself. And I'm going in, I'm like, and I'm having these conversations with myself, Marshall. Like I'm having conversations in the writing lab. Like, you just never studied before. You've never written before. Like, that's the reason why you feel like you can't write. You never took the time to apply that, but your skill level on the basketball court is developed because you put a lot of time in it.
Yeah.
So when I started realizing that I'm smart, I said, let me transfer that energy to another student, to another kid. And I heard actor Tommie Ford speak from the Martin Show.
Yeah.
That gave me another edge because he was speaking for an hour and he motivated me. And at that moment, I was exposed to something that I watch on TV, a person that I watch on TV every day. And I said, man, if he can do that for me in an hour, imagine what I can do with my story to another kid. And that kind of led me into education because I was like, you know what? I need to go back to the school system to be that teacher that I wanted, or to be that person to those students that could have helped me, a teacher that understand me. Like, so I went into the educational system wondering, what student can I grab today? My objective coming in is, what kid can I make a difference in today? And that pushes me now, because I'm out in education. I travel the country now, and I'm asking myself every time I speak, what kid can I save today? If I'm not speaking to a kid, what teacher can I motivate today to be that person to that kid? And everything always boils back to the kid. I'm doing what I'm doing right now, even if I'm speaking to teachers, superintendents, principals, it's still all about the kids, because I need you to understand you matter. That's where the album came from. You matter. That's why I did the album, because I wanted them to understand you dealing with a kid that has a different perspective from the normal kid. Every kid is not the same. That's one fold. It's to give those teachers, not only to motivate the teacher, but to let the teacher understand the student from their perspectives.
Right.
And the second fold is me showing appreciation to the teachers.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a teacher should be the highest paid individual on the country, one of the highest paid, because teachers see our kids, Marshall, almost 8 hours a day. They see those kids, they see our kids more than we see them. If we can't advocate, those are like the parents to me. We see our kids probably 3 to 4 hours a day at the most. But the people that we should be advocating for is the educators. They are raising our kids. So that album was to show appreciation to the teachers, but also to enhance their perspective, to understand students from their perspective.
Well, I think it is a really nice thank you note to teachers, in the sense that there's a lot of food for thought in it. The first track we mentioned was, well, Do You Know, which was the story of the young man with the candy sales, and on that. And then, Identity, which was the next track. It talks about, what's your classroom say to you? And you just have a great line in there. It said, what you allow in August, you will see in May. That's strong as onions. Yeah.
It's about how you start.
Yeah.
You build a foundation with anything. You just can't go build a house. Everything starts with a foundation. And I asked you, what does that classroom say about you? As a student, when I walk into that building, when I walk into that classroom, I should already know the expectations. In August, day one, I should look at that word wall, that door, say, this is where history meets the future. I have a sense of what's going on in this room, the way that you greet me, and even when you're absent, when you build an identity in your classroom, even when you're absent, the people that's on your hall, your teachers that you peer teach with, they will come in the room if they hear noise or anything, because they know that's not what it looked like. They know when you're absent. But when you build a foundation in your classroom, you giving a student something to stand on. And I understand you got to teach people how to treat you. And that's in any field. You got to teach people how to treat you. And you can't assume that because I'm Marshall, everybody know how to treat me. No, but once you teach people how to treat you and you say that these are my standards, you can't just talk to me any kind of way. You can't just walk into my house any kind of way. Like, this is my peace zone. But because kids only do what you allow them to do. So when you build that foundation and you let kids know when they walk in, I'm giving you the best version of me today. Every day you walk into my classroom, I don't see your neighborhood. I don't see your deficiencies. I don't see any of that. The only thing I see is possibilities. That's what I mean by building a foundation. And what does that classroom say about you as a teacher?
It dovetails really well into the next one, The Village. And I remember when Hillary Clinton wrote the book, It Takes a Village, to raise a child or whatever. And you have a really good point. What if the village is corrupt?
What if the village corrupt? So if we say it takes a village to raise a child, what if we watch kids in that community just throw their lives away? What if we watch and we sit and we observe kids doing things we know that's not good, and we would not say anything because times are different? Now let's look at what's raising our kid. The kid is raising the kid in that faith, in that sense. So if it takes a village to raise a child, let's understand what we're saying and let's get the village back. Let's get the village back to when that quote was originated. That quote stood on accountability. That quote meant, and I remember when my grandparents would tell me back in the days, and my mom and dad would tell me when I was growing up, if I get into any trouble growing up, before I made it home, the Sunday school teacher would have pulled me to the side. The lady at the corner store would have pulled me to the side. That means you don't have to be my kid for me to want something for you. You don't have to be my kid for me to try to instill something inside of you. But nowadays, times are so different. See, that generation to me understood that it took a village. So and it's not too late. We just got to come together. And like I said on my album, I don't care what's your role in the school. To me, everyone is, anytime you're around a child is a teaching moment and you are a teacher, even in your community. You can be the custodian, the cafeteria worker, bus driver. All of you all matter.
Yeah.
You can't walk into that building like you're insignificant. You matter anytime you're around me, because this is a moment for you to exercise your wisdom to me. To show, and I had a custodian. That's what I was telling you on the album. I had a custodian that I would never forget. He would watch me skip class. He found me everywhere I skipped class at. And he would tell me, look, man, you're amazing. Go back to class. I made some mistakes growing up. Right there, that's a moment. He didn't look at that job like I'm here to clean up. No, he said, I'm going to clean up also. I'm going to make this school look amazing, but I'm also going to mentor to the kids that I come in contact with. See, that's a village to me.
It's amazing, Tommie. You talk about the custodian. I mean, I was a custodian for my first year out of college, and wasn't exactly on the career path, but it was the best job I've ever had, most important job I've ever had. I'll put it that way. I think being a cartoonist is a lot better than being a custodian, technically. But that said, I still keep up with some of the students at that school, and they weren't that much younger than me. I mean, I was 25 and they were 18. That's not a huge gap. And they were intrigued. They wanted to know what college was like. They wanted to know what to expect. Why was I there, and so forth. And I'm friends with a lot of the teachers. But the reason I say that, and I think you're right. I mean, obviously, bus drivers, lunchroom ladies, lunchroom people, whoever lunchroom people are, principals, teachers. I think the golden thread that runs through your whole album is the fact that we need to start paying attention to the people around us in their needs and start giving ourselves to be able to help them to be able to be their best person. It's this empathy that we as a nation seem like we have lost and we've forgotten. You had Kingpin, which is a really nice track talking about a principal who took great joy of being I guess, for a lack of a better word, a ball buster and just writing everybody up.
Yeah.
But what good does that do?
How you take pride in writing your staff up, and not just in a school building, your coworkers. Yeah. And you can even look at a McDonald's franchise. I need those people on the front line with me. They represent the brand. Yeah. Those employees represent the brand. I can't build tension with the people that's on the front line with me, because if the ship fall and the organization fail, they're going to come to me as the principal in the school. They're going to want answers. But yeah, I've built tension with everybody in the building, and the teachers would tell me, oh, he the kingpin. So I asked him, I said, what make you the kingpin? He said, I write them up. And he was so so prideful about it. And I said, man, what does that do for you? Because I said that only builds tension between you and your staff member. Just imagine if she was excited coming to work.
Yeah.
Just imagine if she was excited to just be in your presence. You don't have to push a person to do what they want to do. If she really want to be there and she love her job, you don't really have to push her to perform. She would do it anyway. You got to convince people to do stuff that they don't want to do. If I don't want to be in your building, even as a kid, you don't have to push your kid to play Roblox, the games and all the stuff that those kids really want to do it. So imagine if your kid really wanted to be at school. If that kid couldn't wait to get to that assignment, that kid couldn't wait to watch you greet them in them. Just imagine. Kids say they don't like school. Why? That's something there. Let's understand that kid from his perspective. Why doesn't he like school? You know what I'm saying? So
why didn't you like school? Did you feel inadequate? Did you feel like you weren't capable? Or what was it that made you feel uncomfortable when you were in a classroom?
I didn't think I was smart. And that was my defense mechanism.
Yeah.
I didn't think I can perform like the other kids around me. And I thought every kid around me was smart. And I thought I wasn't. So
why was
not
that?
only
why did you think you weren't smart? Just because, I mean, seriously, and because you've obviously proven that you're quite smart. I just seeing your grade point average in your upper level classes, particularly, you've done quite well. I mean, so what was it? Was it somebody told you?
It was a mixture of what people said about me.
Yeah.
But I think my behavior put a bad taste in a lot of educators' mouth. Because me being said I was a troublemaker and this and that, I started to wear that. And I just never applied myself, Marshall. Like, honestly, school was not a place that I felt comfortable being at.
Right.
Because I really felt like I really wasn't smart.
Yeah.
My grades showed that also. But when I look back now, it's because I didn't have that structure at home that, like my daughter, for an example, if my daughter struggled, when we come home, we working on that. Yeah. I'm getting her tutors. I'm doing this and that. I didn't have those resources. So, and I'm up to 11 and 12 at night. So when I come to school, I'm not really there. You know what I'm saying? Like my mind is elsewhere. So my grades showed that. My grades proved that I really didn't have the tools. But when I started applying myself, then I realized, yes, you're really smart. You just didn't have the infrastructure around you at the moment to show that. And then, Marshall, it was peer pressure, because when you from a certain environment, you think it's smart to be dumb and dumb to be smart. You know what they called a kid with a book bag on? We called him lame growing up. Oh, look at him with his glasses, his pants pulled up. He's considered lame because that's not what we do in our environment. We don't say yes, sir, and no, ma'am in our environment. So it was more of me fighting for acceptance too. I didn't want the kids to think I was smart. I wanted them to think I was tough. I wanted them to think that I'm that kind of person. That's why I got all the tattoos. I tattooed my entire body. But I got gold teeth. I had gold teeth when I was in middle school, permanent, something you can't take out. But my image gave me that acceptance. Kids saw me as it was more of a defense mechanism because I lacked self-esteem. Yeah. And then my mom and dad had gold teeth. My culture, my environment, that's how I wanted to look like that. I didn't want to be considered a guy that was smart. So I didn't apply myself. That's why I said I didn't think I was smart, because I never applied myself for those reasons. You know, a kid that got a 4.0 growing up in elementary and middle school, like that didn't look cool. Not to the kids.
Right.
Now, like I said, I thought it was smart to be dumb and dumb to be smart, which is not smart at all. But that was my mindset back then.
You obviously had a mentor or two along the way that helped lift you up, because like I said, you know, it's the old, you see a turtle on a fence post, you know, it had some help, and you had some help along the way. Who were mentors in your life?
My coaches, my basketball coaches, my dad, man, my dad wanted so much for me growing up. And I also understood my dad was limited also too. he didn't have the resources around, but to this day, I still have an amazing dad. Every coach that came in contact with me really gave me a lot of wisdom. So I give that credit to like the mayor of Jackson, Chokwe Lumumba, rest in peace to him.
Yeah.
He took me on the road when I was real young.
Really?
I was probably 5th and 6th grade when everybody else was calling me troublemaker, troublemaker, troublemaker. He told me one thing. He said, man, I'm going to show you what you could be. And I didn't understand what he was saying. And he was like, man, I'm going to take you on the road with me. I want to put you on my AAU basketball team. You're going to travel the country. AAU basketball saved my life because I got around other kids that dream different.
Yeah.
And to be exposed to kids that was like, I'm going to the University of Duke. I'm going to the University of North Carolina. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. You all dream different. I'm just trying to score. Like, I'm not trying to go nowhere with this, but I always want to acknowledge the fact that that man gave me an outlet. I was traveling the world, getting new pair of shoes every trip. I'm like, I used to have to wear these shoes almost 2 years. I was so happy when the school system went into school uniforms because it leveled the playing field.
Yeah.
But the only thing about wearing a uniform, you got to have some good shoes. I didn't even have good shoes. So playing basketball gave me all these different resources. And he took a gamble with me. I'm like, my resume. At that moment, I was considered a real troublemaker, man. But he looked past that. And AAU basketball really saved my life. It kept me grounded to that sport, man. It made me dream, man. Yeah. And that's what, when I think of a mentor, is giving a kid something that he really don't have at that moment. And that's what my basketball coach and my pastor, it's people that I can pinpoint and say, man, I appreciate you.
You've done a great job paying it forward too. And I will give you complete credit on that. You know, one of your first jobs, you went to Tougaloo. You were Mr. Tougaloo. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I dare say that you, and this is your own quote, you were the first Mr. Tougaloo of your kind.
Of my kind.
I thought that was pretty cool. But I mean, you were an in-school suspension teacher, more or less. And, you know, that's pretty tough job, you know, because you're in with kids that are in trouble every day. But you really turned it into an opportunity, and you were able to reach out and just really early on in your education career with kids, and even to the point where the principal realized that, you know what, Tommie's a value. He's pretty helpful to have around.
You would have thought I was a superintendent in the school building, because that's my perspective. It wasn't about the job title.
Yeah,
kids don't see job titles. We see positions. We see principals. We see pay grade. They just see this in an adult. Yeah. So I didn't come in the school system thinking like I'm the ISS teacher. I'm probably one of the lowest paid positions. No, I was like, this is a moment. And I had the credentials. I just finished Tougaloo College. I was Mr. Tougaloo College. I finished with honors. That was the best day of my life at graduation. So I was excited coming in to make that difference and show kids that I come from this. That's why I never try to be nothing different. Every time you see me, I don't try to change. I love this person. I love who I am. I don't try to be nobody else.
Oh, you're real.
I may not speak and talk like everybody else, but guess what? It's a kid out there that can relate to me, and I can touch him in a way that a lot of people can't. So I walked into that building trying to make a difference. And the principal realized, like, wait a minute, Mr. Mabry, he's a force. He's an asset. All the kids gravitate to him. And he started using me in positions I would teach other teachers' class. When he leave, he would put me on the hallway. He told me one day, he said, man, you know why I put you there? Every day I leave this building if I know you here. If I know you're here, then I'm comfortable knowing that I can lead the building. Wow. And to me, that's everything, man, to know that you trust me in that way. And I'm also an asset to your building. So my job in that school, the job title may said ISS teacher, but I was bigger than that. In my mind, to them, I'm hope.
How do teachers react to you? I mean, you know, you're out there on the front lines, and I mean, now that COVID has kind of allowed you to be able to get back into the schools and talk to schools and everything. But what are some of the things that you hear from teachers after you speak to them?
They break down crying. If you see some of those videos I post on my social site on Instagram, teachers really see their students in me.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of educators that really can't reach that young Tommie.
Yeah.
That young Tommie. And that's why I said educators are so important, because I know how much they really care. The teachers that I come in contact, they really care. They go to the conference to hear me speak so they can take what I said back and apply it. And when they come up to me, you should hear them. I hear teachers every day tell me, "You just gave me hope. I wanted to quit. I wanted to give this up. I just can't reach this generation of kids. This new generation, I just can't. But you just gave me tools, you gave me strategies, you gave me ways to go back and be innovative." And I hear that so much, but like I said, it's still about the kid to me. But a lot of teachers tell me they see their students in me. That's why I don't try to cover up my arms and my tattoos, and because that ain't who I am. Yeah. I want you to see me as Dr. Tommie Mabry in this image. Because I even had a kid that wrote me on Instagram a few days ago, and he said, "Man, I didn't even know that a doctor can look like that." And I said, "What you mean?" I'm just asking. He said, "Man, you have tattoos, you have on your neck, your hand." He said, "Man, you just cool, man." I'm like, "But you can be that same person, and don't let people tell you that person right there that you are, you can't be great because you look this way or you look that way." No, I want to show kids you can take, with a little structure, you can take a kid that's back and forth from the youth detention center and you can make him something. You can make him great. You can, I heard somebody say this. If you don't see that you're great, nobody else will. I don't believe that. I've heard that quote a lot of times. If you don't think you're great, nobody will. No.
Yeah, that really dovetails into the 10th track, New Day. He can be different if you were different.
If you were different, because he don't know he's great right now, but you should see him in a certain light.
Right.
I don't come in contact with kids that already feel. Kids don't come up to me and say, "Mr. Mabry, I'm great." No, they come in and tell me some real traumatic stories. They don't see themselves the way that I see. So I'm telling you, you're great if you never heard it before. That's what the New Day track was about. Like, you finna get Tommie Mabry in that classroom soon. And when Tommie come in that classroom, be ready for him. Be ready for him, because he coming in with a different mindset. The new generation of kids, they coming in with a different baggage. And that album has touched so many educators so far.
Yeah.
And it's a free album.
Yeah, that's the thing I was going to ask you. This isn't something where you're rolling, you're making a ton of cash on. You did this out of your own pocket because you wanted to be able to give something, kind of a souvenir for teachers to be able to have to remember what you had to say. But it's done well. I mean, it's been very popular on all the platforms. And how can folks find it?
You can get it on Apple Music, Tidal, some of those outlets. You can go to Spotify. My website is www.tommiemabry.com. My social media is Dr. Tommie Mabry on all sites. You can Google it, the Educator's album. It'll take you to Amazon Music. It's a lot of different.
It's got a good beat to it. It's got a little rhythm. It's got you with the same energy you actually give out for a live audience, which anybody who's ever spoken, which, I like to speak, but it's so much different when you got a microphone in front of you than it is when you're in front of 1,000 people, filling up their room. But you catch it. It's got a lot of energy. I just, like I said, you got expectations, perspective, asset, you matter, New Day, thank you. And in the end, you thank teachers, and you are their champion. You do care for them. And for all the reasons we mentioned before, is the fact that at the end of the day, our kids are spending I think about that every time I drop my son off. Like, it was a huge moment of faith on my part to send him into that school. Because he's all the teachers, I just want the best for them, because I know they're shaping his life in that period of time.
And it's our job to advocate for that, to show our appreciation to the ones that's really developing our kids. That's why I give a lot of credit to the bus drivers.
Yeah.
You know how hard it is to carry kids in the morning and in the evening.
Yeah.
And get them home safe and keep them out of that window. And it's hard. if you've never been in that position before, you may not see it the way that the bus driver, but it's hard to, I have daughters that scream all day in the car when I pick them up, like they just playful.
Yeah.
And it's just 2 of them in my car. So imagine trying to take 20 kids home in the neighborhood.
Tommie, I'm old, okay? and I can't remember where my car keys are, but my bus driver was named Ms. Riddick, and she used to get your head out of them windows. That's what she used to, I just hell on that. So you talk about keeping your head out of the window, I never did see any kid get their head knocked off, but I kind of figured, it's because Ms. Riddick was on top of things. But yeah, you're right.
I had a bus driver would see me skip school and make a whole loop and put a bus in park and walk down and tell me, come on.
See, that's
solid. You're going.
Yeah.
That's big, man.
That's big. That's like total respect right there.
And that's what the album is. That's the different folds that I wanted people to get from the album. But it came from a teacher. A lot of teachers ask me when I'm done speaking, is there anything that you can leave us with? Do you have something on YouTube that I can listen to in the morning on the way to work? Like when I want your same energy when you gone, and I'm like, yeah, I got to give them an album. I got to give them something to be motivated. And at this time, Marshall, like, this is a moment in time where it's real tough with the pandemic.
Yeah.
Our teachers are still on the front line. Like, regardless of their own homes, they still come to school every day.
And their health.
In their health. But they still come to school for us, for our kids. That should be enough to tell a teacher, thank you. I appreciate you. Keep going. And it's big really for me.
Yeah, I'll be really honest with you. I mean, like I said, I got something out. I've taught a couple college classes, but I'm not totally, I wouldn't consider myself a teacher by any means. But there was an awful lot in there that just kind of opened my eyes to think, I need to be a little more grateful and kind to my coworkers, to my wife, to the people around me, my neighbors, and just be more present and more engaged in the life that I'm living. And I think my world would get a little bit better.
Just give people around you the best version of you. That's what I try to focus on. Just give them the best version. Let people see you in the best version. It's nothing to smile and tell a person, how your day going? Is it anything I could help you with? That's what I think the pandemic showed us. I think me and you was talking about that before, how much we need each other.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing. Like every time I see you, I get a boast of energy. It's just you always the same person. And I admire that.
The pandemic also is like Toto ripping back the curtain and revealing but it revealed weaknesses in areas where we can grow and so forth on that too. And I think it's been important. No, like I said, I really like you on a personal front, not only professional, because like you said, you're real. You're not trying to be somebody you're not. And I got a BS detector that's pretty fine-tuned after drawing politicians for 25, 30 years. So I'm pretty good at sniffing that stuff out. But you are who you are, and you make a big difference. And I was thinking about, when I was a custodian, I really threw a major pity party for about, I don't know, maybe half the time I was there. And I went to church and they were talking about the parable of the talents. And I realized I was the servant who was bearing my talent, right? So I came back the next Monday with a great attitude. And they drug tested me right away because they figured I was on something, because I was like a fart in an elevator. You didn't want to be around me, but you couldn't get away from me, But then when my attitude changed for the better, it seemed like good things started happening more often. And I look back on your career and it just kind of reminds me of that. Obviously, I came from an awfully different background than you did, and I had a lot of advantages that you never had. And I'm really proud of the fact that you were able to pull yourself out like you were on that. But did you notice when your attitude changed, when you took the bullet, when you were at Tougaloo, you were around the mentors, that when your attitude changed, that it seemed like people around you started being a little more open and more helpful for you?
Yeah, it was the law of attraction.
Yeah.
What you give off to the universe, you get it back.
Yeah.
And positive people come around positive people. Negative people love being a misery love company in that aspect.
Man, it is so seductive though to be miserable and to complain and to fuss and everything. It really is. But you're right, because it's like suddenly you're attracting more people like you.
You're attracting that. And when I changed when I went into my own core, people around me started responding to that.
Yeah.
You know, people started. Now, I remember times where parents didn't want their kids around me. Now they want me around their kids. Like they want, can you mentor him? Can you please? I get thousands of emails every day from people around the country asking, when would you be in this state? When my kid is this? And I take a lot of pride in that, man. That's what the PhD was for me. When I received, my story went viral for when I opened up the degree and I was crying and all of the above.
Yeah.
I knew I was opening up possibilities for our kids. You know, like I would have never thought that I have a PhD. You know, and it wasn't even about me, Marshall. Like a lot of people go back to school to advance in their job. You know, maybe you can get a different pay grade. I was speaking full time for my own company. I'm self-employed.
Right.
So
you're not
I went
working.
and got.
Yeah. You're not working. The cash register ain't ringing.
Right. My PhD was for them.
Right.
This yours.
Yeah.
This is your possibilities. I just limit your excuses. Because I remember a lady asked me, why did you go back and get a PhD? She said, you already published 3 books that's doing well. You know, you this and you that. I said, it was never about me. Yeah. Like, that's not giving me that credit. It was never about me. It was about, if I go get a PhD, you know what that says to that young kid that don't understand that he can be great? That PhD speak volume to him. It's about that to me.
What's next for Tommie Mabry?
Continue to walk this path of being this different maker with our kids. And I also want to do the movie to my life story. That's my next agenda right now.
Who's going to play you?
Oh, that's a good question. I've written the movie out now. Denzel? I'm just waiting on the resources. That'll be real interesting to figure out who play. I'm just waiting on
Denzel's 40 years older than you, but you know, he looks like he's 20 years younger. You know how he is. He never ages. So
I think we should. I want to show the kids around the world on the television, because television and the social media, they have the kids' attention right now. So I want to show my life story. This young kid that persevered through all of those trials and tribulations growing up, and to show my culture in Jackson, Mississippi, and show that, yeah, we got some amazing people here. Yeah. You know, but I want to show that movie of my life story either on Netflix or, you know, box office. But I'm actually done writing it. I'm just waiting on the resources now, because I've accomplished pretty much everything else and later I want to have my own school. So really, I'm working on some things now. So I'm working on another book also.
So the Tommie Mabry School, where do you envision it being? And would you be the principal, or are you just going to be like LeBron, kind of, and fund it?
Both.
Okay.
I want to be present. I want an all males academy school. I want to take young kids that didn't have the resources. I want to target those first generation males. I want not to limit, to be biased with the young ladies, but I want to build something. Like I want to take kids that really can't perform in that public setting, or those kids that really, I want to take those kids that really need that help, that really need that mentorship, that really need those resources. And I want to use those kids like me. And I want to show with a little structure what those kids could be if they had the infrastructure and the setup to be great. And I want to make my school that way. You should be able to come to school and get a barber's certificate. By the time you graduate from high school, you go straight into having a job. It's not even about just sports. I want to have cosmetology, meaning the barber school, of course. I want to have all of these different outlets. This guy's a mechanic. When he leave high school, he got a job. You know, building trades around, because every kid is not going to go to college, but then have that outlet for college also. I want to run my school that way. I want to set my kids up so when you 17 and 18, is either you're going to go into college or you're going straight to work. Because if we don't set them up that way, we know what the research showed. So I'm trying to prepare them now. And I want school to be fun, Marshall. Like, school should not feel like I was sentenced to 12 years in education.
Yeah.
It's not that. I want this school to be, I just can't wait to get back to school the next morning. And I want to make, and that's my dream. So one day it'll come true. Because I got my target on it now.
I can't wait to be a guest teacher,
You will. You most definitely will.
teach the kids how to draw or something. I don't know. Do whatever.
Come on now. There you go.
See, I don't really know what I can teach, but I guess I could teach that.
You are hired.
Oh, very good. Always good to know I got a backup. I got a plan B, even though I'm not really technically supposed to have one, I guess. So.
That's your plan A still.
That's my plan. That's right. Hey, I don't want to keep you too much longer because I know you're a busy guy, but I've definitely, you and I could do this for 5 hours. I mean, I love talking to you, and I love talking to you about motivation and how to motivate other people. But I mean, I just got done a totally different subject, but I just got done reading Dave Grohl's book, Storyteller, which is fantastic. Really good book. And he was talking about the same thing about putting out into the universe and getting back what he puts out there. Because, I mean, he was dreaming as a kid that he'd be in front of a giant, thousands of people playing his instruments. And, that's what he does for a living. It obviously came true on that. But the one thing that really struck me about him, and I watched him drumming about a week ago, actually, Smells Like Teen Spirit, the great Nirvana song from the early 90s. And he was the drummer for that. And I've never seen a human being enjoy doing what he was doing any more than what Dave Grohl was doing in that moment. And I truly think that at the end of the day, that love and joy truly are the antidote for a lot of the problems that we've got on an individual and a societal level. It's just
when you love what you do, love what you do, that's why I encourage kids to find two things: find your purpose and find your passion. Yeah. Find your purpose and find your passion. Because then if that alarm go off and you don't really like it and you ready, that means you usually doing something you're not really passionate about, and you operating and it's not in your gift. Right. Because when that alarm go off and you try to hit it and you like, oh, I got to go to work today, you don't have that same passion. I go to work now. I don't even work, put it that way. This is not considered work to me. I've located my gift. Yeah. And I've located my passion and my purpose. I can do this all day. And it shows. That's why you see I'm always speaking with a certain level of energy. Yeah. So it's those two things: your passion and your purpose, but also locating your gift. Locating your gift and operating in your gift, it always feels good.
I definitely recommend the Educator album, and I also recommend people find you on YouTube just to watch you speak, because it is fun to do. And Tommie, what's the best way for folks to find out more about you?
My email is Tommie Mabry at Yahoo, TommieMabry@gmail.com. That's TommieMabry, and my website is www.TommieMabry.com.
Proud of you, brother. You're doing great.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you for having me too.
Hey, no problem. Can't wait to do this again soon, because Lord knows, I'm sure your book will come out by then and a couple of other things.
Oh, let's pray about that.
Okay. Thank you, Tommie. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode of Mississippi Stories. Make sure to subscribe to the Mississippi Today YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified every time a new video uploads.